The ship landed with a soft hiss. Ta checked his suit one last time and took a deep breath. He was the first human to step onto planet Vistara. The air could be breathed by humans, the test said, but no one had actually tried it yet. "Ready, Ambassador Ta?" Captain Kim's voice came through his earpiece. "As ready as I'll ever be," Ta said. "Let's make history." The door opened slowly. Bright purple light flooded in. Ta squinted. The sky of Vistara was not blue like Earth's. It was a deep lavender color. Outside, a group of aliens waited. They looked almost human, but not quite. Their skin had a soft blue tint. Their eyes were larger than human eyes. They had no hair on their heads, just smooth skin with small bumps in patterns. They wore simple white robes. Ta walked down the ramp. His heart beat fast. 5 years of space travel had led to this moment. "Greetings," he said in simple English. The universal translators would do their work. "I am Ta, ambassador from Earth. I bring peace and friendship." One of the aliens stepped forward. She was shorter than the others. Her skin was a lighter blue. The bumps on her head formed a pattern like a crown. "Welcome to Vistara," she said. Her voice sounded musical. "I am Ja, lead researcher of alien biology. We have waited many cycles to meet humans face to face." Ta smiled. The first words between humans and Vistarans had been spoken and understood. 3 days later, Tai sat in a large room in the science building. The other 5 human diplomats were busy in different parts of the city. Ta had been assigned to work with the science team. He didn't mind. He found Jia interesting to talk to. "Your videos and radio signals reached us 60 Earth years ago," Jia said. She moved her hands in a flowing way as she talked. "We have studied your languages, your cultures, your bodies, but there is much we do not understand." Ta nodded. "We are very different species." "Yes, but also similar in many ways. We both think. We both build. We both explore." Jia's large eyes blinked slowly. "But your bodies are a mystery to us, especially how you make new life." Tai felt his face get warm. He knew this topic would come up. The briefing had prepared him for it. Vistarans reproduced in a completely different way from humans. "We can discuss that," he said carefully. "It's a normal scientific topic." Jia seemed pleased. "Good. On Vistara, we reproduce through spores. When 3 adults decide to create a new life, they each release spores that mix in a special pool. A new Vistaran grows from this mix." "That's very different from humans," Tai admitted. "We know humans have 2 types, male and female," Jia continued, "and that you grow your young inside the body. But the details are unclear to us." A door opened, and more Vistarans entered. They wore the white robes that seemed to mark scientists. "These are my colleagues," Jia explained. "They would like to join our discussion, if that's acceptable." Ta nodded. "Of course." They all sat in a circle on soft cushions. Ta felt like he was in a very strange classroom. "We have a question," one of the new Vistarans said. His name was Du. "In your Earth transmissions, male humans often say they think with what's between their legs. What does this mean? Do males keep their brains there?" Tai almost choked. He had not expected this question. How could he explain this idiom to aliens? No," he said, trying to stay professional. "Our brains are in our heads, like yours. That saying is just a joke. It means that sometimes physical desires can be stronger than logical thinking." The Vistarans looked confused. They whispered among themselves. "But what is between male legs that could think?" Jia asked, genuinely curious. "Is it a secondary brain? A neural cluster?" No, Ta said quickly. "It's our reproductive organ. It doesn't think. It's just an expression." More confused whispers. "Why would you joke that a reproductive organ can think?" Du asked. "Is it special in some way?" Tai wished he had brought one of the human doctors along. It's complicated to explain without understanding human biology better. Jia nodded seriously. We would like to understand human biology better. Would you allow medical scans? Non-invasive, of course. Ta had been authorized to participate in basic medical examinations. It was part of the cultural exchange. Yes, I can do that, he said. Basic scans are fine. Jia stood up excitedly. Excellent. We have prepared a medical room for human examination. We can go now, if you're willing. The medical room looked nothing like hospitals on Earth. Everything was curved and flowed like water. There were no sharp edges anywhere. The examination table was like a giant cushion. Please lie down, Jia said. The scan will take about 20 minutes. You can keep your clothes on for this first scan. Ta lay down. The cushion molded to his body. It was surprisingly comfortable. A large dome lowered from the ceiling. It glowed with soft blue light. Ta could feel a slight tingling sensation as it passed over him. Jia and 2 other scientists watched a flowing, 3D image form in the air. It showed Ta's body, but instead of bones and organs, it showed energy patterns. Fascinating, Jia said. Your energy flows are nothing like ours. See how it concentrates in different nodes. The other scientists nodded and made notes on their floating screens. What are you seeing? Tai asked, curious. Your life energy, Jia explained. What you might call bioelectrical fields. Every living thing has them, but each species has different patterns. The scan continued. Todd watched the scientists become more and more excited as they spoke in quick technical terms. Finally, the scan ended. The dome rose back into the ceiling. Your biology is amazing, Jia said. So different from ours, yet clearly efficient for your species. Thank you, I think, Ta said with a smile. What did you learn? We need to do more specific scans to understand fully, Jia said. Would you allow a focused scan of your reproductive system? It seems to have unusual energy patterns. Ta hesitated. This was getting personal. But it was just scientific research, and building good relations with the Vistarans was his job. Okay, he said, but can we have some privacy? Just you as the lead researcher. Jia nodded. The other scientists left the room. For this scan, I need to focus on specific areas, Jia explained. Would you be comfortable removing your lower garments? You can cover yourself with this. She handed him a small sheet of soft, paper-like material. Tai took a deep breath. Just a moment. He turned away, removed his pants, and wrapped the sheet around his waist. Then he lay back down on the cushion. I'm ready, he said. Jia activated a smaller scanning dome. This one focused just on Ta's lower body. The 3D image appeared again, showing energy patterns around his reproductive organs. Jia's large eyes grew even wider. This is unexpected, she said. The energy concentration here is significant. And the physical structure. She zoomed in on the image. This is completely different from any reproductive system on Vistara. Ta felt awkward but tried to stay professional. Yes, mammals are very different from spore reproducers. Jia looked from the scan to Ta. The actual physical organ. May I see it? For scientific documentation. Ta's face went red. That's very personal. In human culture, showing those parts is usually only done in medical or intimate situations. This is medical, Jia said simply. But I understand if it's against your customs. Ta thought for a moment. The mission briefing had said to share biological information freely. It was just science to the Vistarans. Okay, he said finally, but only for scientific purposes. He slowly removed the covering. Jia looked at him, then at the scan, then back at him. Her mouth opened slightly. The bumps on her head changed color, shifting from blue to purple. That's how you reproduce? She asked, her voice higher than before. Well, yes, Ta said, quickly covering himself again. Males and females have different parts that, connect. Jia stepped back. Internal fertilization, she whispered, like simple animals. But you're clearly intelligent beings. She seemed to be having trouble processing this information. Is something wrong? Tai asked. No, Gia said quickly. No, it's just. On Vistara, only non-intelligent creatures reproduce that way. We never imagined that a spacefaring species could evolve from that method. Now Tai felt slightly offended. Our method of reproduction doesn't reflect our intelligence. Of course not, Gia said, regaining her composure. I apologize if I seemed shocked. This is why we explore the universe, to find new ways of being. She made some notes on her screen. But I must ask, if what's between your legs isn't a thinking organ, why do your transmissions so often joke that males think with it? Ta sighed. This was going to be a very long diplomatic mission. Let me try to explain human humor to you, he said, sitting up. But first, can I put my pants back on? 2 weeks passed since Ta's first medical exam. He now walked comfortably through the halls of the science building without an escort. The Vistarans had given him a special badge that let him enter most areas. They trusted him more each day. Ta entered the main lab where Jo worked. She looked up from her floating screen and smiled. At least, Tai thought it was a smile. Her mouth moved in a way that seemed friendly. Good morning, Tai, she said. Thank you for coming. No problem, Ta said. He sat on one of the curved chairs. What do you want to talk about today? Jia's large eyes blinked slowly. I have been studying the data from your scans. I have many new questions about human reproduction. Ta nodded. He was getting used to these conversations. They felt less awkward now. Ask away. That's why I'm here. Jia moved her screen so Tai could see it. It showed diagrams of human male and female anatomy. The diagrams were very detailed. These are from your Earth medical databases, Jia explained. Your Captain Kim shared them with us. I see, Ta said. He was glad for the scientific approach. It made the topic less personal. What I find most interesting, Jia continued, is how your species combines genetic material. You only need 2 types of humans, not 3 like us, and you do it through direct contact. Yes, that's right, Ta said. And the male inserts his organ into the female's body? Jia asked. Her head bumps turned slightly purple, which Ta had learned meant strong interest or excitement. That's correct, Ta said. He tried to keep his voice steady and scientific. Amazing, Jia whispered. The risks seem high. The coordination needed between 2 bodies, the potential for injury, yet your species thrived. Ta hadn't thought about it that way before. I guess when you put it like that, it does seem complicated. And this process, you call it sex, it also gives pleasure? Jia asked. Yes, Ta said. Strong pleasure. That's why humans do it even when they don't want children. Jia's bumps turned even more purple. This is what truly amazes me. Your evolution linked reproduction with pleasure. So clever. Our spore release is just a normal body function, like breathing. No pleasure, no pain. Tai was surprised. Really? It's just nothing. Just a release of material, Jia confirmed. We choose to reproduce for logical reasons, to continue our species, to create a new mind with our combined traits. The act itself is simple. That sounds very practical, Ta said. It is, Jia agreed. But your way. She paused and looked at the diagrams again. Your way created something unexpected in your species. What do you mean? Tai asked. May I show you something? Jia asked. She changed the screen to show brain scans. Some human, some Vistaran. These are brain activity patterns, she explained. Vistaran brains on the left, human brains on the right. Ta looked at the colorful images. They showed different areas lighting up in each type of brain. The patterns are quite different, he said. Yes, Jia agreed. But look at this area. She pointed to a part of the human brain that glowed bright red. This is your emotional center. It's much larger and more active than ours. Is that good or bad? Tai asked. Neither, just different. Jia moved closer to him. But I have a theory. Your reproductive method created stronger emotional bonds. You had to care about your partner to reproduce successfully. You had to understand their needs, their feelings. Ta nodded slowly. That makes sense. And look at this, Jia continued. She showed a chart comparing hormone levels. During human reproduction, your bodies release chemicals that create feelings of love, trust, and bonding. Oxytocin and others, yes, Ta said. Viscerins have no equivalent, Jia said. We bond through shared thoughts and goals, not physical processes. Ta was fascinated now. So you think our way of reproduction shaped how humans think and feel? Exactly, Jia said, her voice rising with excitement. What first shocked me, your physical mating, may be why humans create such beautiful art, music, and literature. You feel things so deeply. Ta had never thought about human reproduction this way. It was strange to hear an alien analyze something so normal to him. Would you allow one more detailed scan today? Jia asked. I want to measure your brain activity while you look at images. What kind of images? Tai asked cautiously. Some of your earth art, some Vistaran art, and some reproductive images from both species, Jia said. I want to see how your brain responds. Tai thought for a moment. Okay, but I get to approve the images first. Of course, Jia said. An hour later, Ta lay under the scanning dome again. This time, it focused on his head. A screen floated above him, showing different images. First came beautiful earth landscapes. Mountains, oceans, forests. Then Vistaran scenes, strange purple fields, crystal formations, swirling mist lakes. Your brain lights up more for the earth images, Jia noted. That's expected. Familiarity creates stronger responses. Next came art. Famous earth paintings, then Vistaran light sculptures. Interesting, Jia said. You respond emotionally to both types of art, but in different brain regions. Then came images of human couples. Some holding hands, some kissing, some in more intimate poses, but still appropriate. Tai felt his heart beat faster. Even though these were just images, they affected him. Now your emotional centers are very active, Jia said. And look, your reproductive system is responding too, even though the images aren't explicit. Tai felt embarrassed. That's normal for humans. Fascinating, Jia whispered. Now look at these. The screen showed Vistarans in their reproduction process. 3 aliens standing around a glowing pool, releasing small particles from their hands into the water. Tai felt nothing. It looked like a strange science experiment, not reproduction. No response, Jia confirmed. Your brain sees this as just information, not something emotional. The scan ended. Ta sat up as the dome retracted. What did you learn? He asked. Jia looked at him with her large eyes. That humans and Vistarans are even more different than I thought. And yet, she paused. And yet, Ta prompted. And yet I find myself drawn to learn more about humans, Jia said. Your emotional responses, your physical forms, your way of seeing the world, they're all so new to me. Ta smiled. I feel the same about Vistarans. That's why I wanted this assignment. Jia moved closer to him. There's something I should tell you. Some of my colleagues think humans are primitive because of how you reproduce. Ta frowned. Primitive? We've achieved space travel, just like you. I know, Jia said quickly. I disagree with them. But tomorrow I must present my findings to the Science Council. Many important Vistarans will be there. What will you tell them? Tai asked. The truth, Jia said. That human reproduction shaped your species in unique ways. That what's between a human's legs isn't just a body part. It's part of a system that helped create your art, your music, your deep emotions. Tai felt a strange mix of pride and embarrassment. When you put it that way, it sounds almost poetic. Would you come to the presentation? Jia asked. Answer questions. Tai thought about how strange this would be, talking about human reproductive organs to a room full of aliens, but this was his job as ambassador, building understanding. I'll be there, he said. Jia's head bumps turned a bright, happy purple. Thank you. This will change how my people see humans. As Tai left the lab, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. Tomorrow would be a very interesting day, and he still hadn't fully explained to Jia why humans joked about thinking with what's between their legs. Some things were hard to translate across species. But maybe that was the point of his mission, to build bridges across the gaps of understanding, one awkward conversation at a time. The Science Council chamber was large and round. Soft purple light came from the ceiling. About 50 Vistarans sat in 3 rising circles of seats. They all wore different colored robes that showed their rank and job. Tai sat in a special chair near the front. He wore his best diplomatic uniform. Captain Kim and 2 other humans from the ship sat behind him. They came to support him. Are you nervous? Captain Kim whispered. A little, Tai admitted. I never thought I'd discuss human reproduction in front of an alien council. Captain Kim smiled. Just remember, to them, it's all science. They don't have the same feelings about these topics as we do. The head of the Science Council stood. He was taller than other Vistarans. The bumps on his head formed a pattern like a full circle. Today we hear findings about human biology, he announced. Lead researcher Jia will present her work. Jia walked to the center of the room. She wore a blue robe with silver patterns. She looked confident, but Tai noticed her hands trembled slightly. Honored Council, she began. For many cycles, we have watched humans from afar. Now they are here, and we can learn the truth about them. She waved her hand, and images appeared in the air. They showed human anatomy diagrams. Humans reproduce in pairs, not triads like us, she explained. They have 2 biological types, male and female. The process involves direct physical contact. Some Vistarans shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others leaned forward with interest. At first, I found this method primitive, Jia continued, like the simple animals of our world. But my research shows it is not primitive at all. It is simply different with its own advantages. She showed brain scans, the same ones she had shown Tai earlier. Human reproduction created strong pair bonds. It developed their emotional centers. It may be why humans created such rich art and music. A Vistaran in a red robe stood up. It was Du, from the first meeting with Tai. This is disturbing, Du said loudly. You suggest that physical mating like animals led to advanced thinking. This goes against all our understanding of evolution. Tai felt his face get warm. He didn't like being compared to animals. Not against all understanding, Jia replied calmly. Just against our understanding. We evolved one way. Humans evolved another way. Both ways led to space travel. Another Vistaran stood up. Is the human here to confirm these claims? Can he speak about this topic? All eyes turned to Tai. He stood up slowly. Yes, he said. I am Ambassador Tai from Earth. I can answer your questions. The room was silent for a moment. Then questions came from all sides. Is it true that humans feel pleasure during reproduction? Does the physical act create emotional bonds? How do humans choose their mates without the logic tests we use? Tai answered as simply and honestly as he could. He explained dating, marriage, love, and family bonds. He talked about how humans chose partners based on many factors, not just logic, but feelings too. Some Vistarans seemed shocked. Others were fascinated. A few looked disgusted. This explains much about human behavior in your transmitted entertainment, one older Vistaran said. The constant focus on pair bonding, the emotional displays, the conflicts over mates. Yes, Tai agreed. Those themes are common in our stories because they're important in our lives. Du spoke again. But this makes humans unpredictable and dangerous. If they make decisions based on these feelings from their reproductive drives, how can we trust them as allies? The room grew tense. This was becoming more than a scientific discussion. It was becoming political. Gia stepped forward. With respect, senior researcher Du, you misunderstand. Human emotions don't make them less intelligent. They process information differently than we do, but they still make good decisions. How can you be sure? Du demanded. Jia looked at Ta, then back at Du. Because I've worked closely with Ambassador Ta for 3 weeks. I've seen how he thinks, how he feels, how he combines logic and emotion in ways we don't. It's not worse than our way. It's just different. The head of the council raised his hand for silence. This debate is interesting, but goes beyond today's topic. Let us return to the biological findings. For the next hour, Gia presented more details about human biology. She compared human and Vistaran systems. She showed how each evolved to suit their planet's conditions. When the formal presentation ended, the council members broke into small groups to discuss what they had learned. Many came to talk directly to Ta. One female Vistaran approached Ta shyly. Is it true that humans create art because of your reproduction method? Not exactly, Ta explained. But our emotional capacity, which is connected to our reproduction, helps us create art that expresses feelings. Fascinating, she said. Can you show me some human art? Ta used his tablet to show her earth paintings, sculptures, and music. Other Vistarans gathered around to see and hear. It speaks to something deep inside. The female Vistaran said, I feel strange when I look at it. Not like when I see Vistaran art. That's because human art tries to create emotional responses, Ta explained. Across the room, Ta saw Du talking angrily to a group of Vistarans. They kept looking over at Ta with what seemed like suspicion. Gia came to Ta's side. You did well, she said quietly. Many are impressed. Not everyone, Ta said, nodding toward Du's group. Du and the traditionalists worry that human influence will change Vistaran culture, Gia explained. They think your emotional nature is dangerous. Is it a serious problem? Tai asked. It could be, Gia admitted. They have influence in the High Council that makes final decisions about relations with other species. Captain Kim joined them. Politics exists everywhere. I see. Even among logical, spore-reproducing aliens. Gia's head bumps turned a light purple. We are not as purely logical as we like to think. We have our own forms of bias and preference. As the meeting ended, the head of the Science Council approached Ta. He bowed slightly. Ambassador, your openness today was valuable. I would like to invite you to speak to the High Council in 7 days. They must hear directly from you before making decisions about human-Vistaran relations. Ta bowed in return. I would be honored. When the Vistarans left, only the humans remained in the room. You're becoming quite the celebrity, Captain Kim said. First human to present alien reproduction to an alien science council. Ta laughed. Not what I expected when I signed up for this mission. The next week will be crucial, Captain Kim said, becoming serious. The High Council will decide if humans can establish a permanent base on Vistara, if they fear us because of our biology. I know, Ta said. I'll need to show them that human emotions are a strength, not a weakness. Later that evening, Ta walked in the gardens outside the science building. The strange plants glowed softly in the dark. He heard footsteps and turned to see Jia approaching. I wanted to thank you, she said. You handled difficult questions with grace. You did the hard part, Ta said. Your research was impressive. Jia's head bumps glowed gently in the darkness. I have been thinking about what Du said, about humans being unpredictable because of emotions. And, Tai asked. I think he is partly right, but wrong in his conclusion, Jia said. Humans are more emotionally driven than Vistarans, but that doesn't make you dangerous. It makes you interesting. Something in her voice made Ta look at her more closely. Interesting how? Your capacity for feelings, for caring about others, for creating beauty, for forming bonds. It's something I find myself wanting to understand better, Jia said. On a personal level, not just scientific. Tai felt a strange flutter in his chest. Was she suggesting? No, that would be impossible across species, wouldn't it? We have 1 week to prepare for the High Council, Jia said, changing the subject. We should work on your presentation every day. I'd like that, Ta said. As they walked together through the glowing garden, Ta wondered if something new was happening between them, something neither human nor Vistaran science had prepared them for. The 7 days passed quickly. Tai and Jia worked together every day to prepare for the High Council meeting. They created visual aids, practiced answers to possible questions, and discussed Vistaran politics. Tai learned that the High Council had 13 members. Each represented a different region of Vistara. They made all important decisions for the planet. 3 council members support humans fully, Jia explained as they walked to her lab. 4 are uncertain. 6 follow Du's view that humans are too emotional to be trusted. That doesn't sound good, Ta said. We need at least 7 to agree. Yes, Jia said. But I have an idea that might help. Inside the lab, several of Jia's assistants worked at floating screens. They nodded respectfully as Tai and Jia entered. What's your idea? Tai asked. A direct demonstration, Jia said. She led him to a quiet corner of the lab. Not just words and images, but something the council can experience. She showed him a small device that looked like a silver headband. This is an empathy link, she explained. Vistarans use it to share knowledge during education, but I've modified it to share emotional states as well. Ta looked at the device with concern. You want council members to feel human emotions. Just a small taste, Jia said. So they understand that emotions aren't chaos. They're another kind of intelligence. Is it safe? Tai asked. Completely, Jia assured him. I've tested it myself. With your permission, of course. Ta looked surprised. You experienced human emotions. Jia's head bumps turned deep purple. Yes, it was overwhelming at first, but also beautiful. I felt things I never knew existed. What did you feel? Tai asked quietly. Jia seemed embarrassed. Many things. Wonder, joy, and something else I can't name. Something when I looked at you. Tai felt his heart beat faster. Jia, are you saying? The lab doors slid open. Captain Kim entered with Du and 2 security Vistarans. What's happening? Tai asked, stepping away from Jia. Senior researcher Du has concerns about your meeting tomorrow, Captain Kim said. Her face looked serious. Du stepped forward. We have reviewed all research data. We believe humans pose a risk to Vistaran society. What risk? Ta demanded. Emotional contamination, Du said. Already, Jia shows signs of human-like emotional responses. This is dangerous. Jia stood tall. My research is objective. My personal experiences don't change the facts. The facts show that humans make decisions based on feelings, not pure logic, Du said. The High Council must know this. We aren't trying to hide anything, Ta said. Humans do use emotions alongside logic. It works for us. But it won't work for Vistara, Du insisted. We have reached the stars through careful, logical planning. Human influence could destroy that. Captain Kim stepped between them. Perhaps we should postpone tomorrow's meeting until we can address these concerns. No, Jia said firmly. The meeting must happen. The full council must decide, not just Du and his supporters. Du's head bumps turned dark blue, a sign of anger or frustration. As you wish, but I will present my findings as well. He turned and left with his security team. Captain Kim looked worried. This is getting complicated, Ta. I know, Ta said. But Jiy's right. We need to make our case to everyone. After Captain Kim left, Tai turned to Jiya. What were you saying before? About feeling something when you looked at me. Jiy's head bumps flushed purple again. It doesn't matter now. We must focus on tomorrow's meeting. The High Council chamber was much larger than the Science Council room. It was at the top of the tallest building in the city. Through clear walls, they could see the purple sky and the strange landscape of Vistara spreading out below. 13 Vistarans in gold robes sat in a half circle. Their head bumps had complex patterns that showed their high rank. The room was also filled with other Vistarans, scientists, officials, and curious citizens. Ta stood in the center with Captain Kim and the other human diplomats. Jiya stood nearby with her research team. Du and his supporters were on the opposite side. The head counselor spoke first. She was very old for a Vistaran, with pale blue skin and faded bumps. We gather to decide the future of human-Vistaran relations, she announced. We will hear all perspectives before voting. For the next 2 hours, different speakers presented their views. Du spoke at length about the dangers of emotional decision-making. He showed examples from human history where emotions led to conflict. When it was Ta's turn, he spoke simply and honestly. Yes, humans have emotions, he admitted. Yes, our emotions influence our decisions, but emotions aren't separate from intelligence. They're part of it. He showed images of Earth, its cities, art, technology, and people working together. Our emotions didn't prevent us from building this, he said. They helped us. Curiosity drove us to explore. Compassion helped us cooperate. Love gave us reason to build a better world. The council members listened silently. Their faces were hard to read. Then Jiya stepped forward. Honored Council, I have something that will help you understand. With your permission, I offer a direct experience. She explained the empathy link. 5 council members volunteered to try it. They put on the silver headbands. Ta wore one too. Think of something that matters deeply to you, Jiya instructed Ta. Let the feeling flow. Ta closed his eyes. He thought of Earth, its blue skies and green forests. He thought of his family. And he thought of his time on Vistara, learning about this new world and its people. He thought of Jiya, and how much he had come to admire her. The council members with headbands gasped. Their head bumps changed colors rapidly. This is extraordinary, one whispered. So rich, so many layers, another said. After a few minutes, they removed the headbands. Their expressions had changed. They looked at Todd differently now. We will vote, the head counselor announced. Each member pressed a button on their chair. A large screen showed the results. 7 in favor of full relations with humans. 6 against. Ta felt relief wash over him. It was a close vote, but they had won. It is decided, the head counselor said. We will establish formal relations with Earth. A human base will be permitted on Vistara. Cultural and scientific exchange will continue. Du and his supporters looked unhappy, but they accepted the vote with dignity. That was the Vistaran way. After the meeting, there was a small celebration. Vistarans and humans mingled, talking excitedly about future plans. Ta found Jiya standing alone, looking out at the view. We did it, he said, joining her. Yes, she said. A new chapter for both our species. What happens now? Ta asked. I will continue my research, Jiya said. There is still so much to learn about humans. And I'll stay as ambassador, Ta said. At least for a year. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the purple sky. Jiya, Ta said finally, you never finished telling me what you felt when you linked with my emotions. Jiya turned to face him. I felt connection, she said simply. Not the Vistaran kind based on logic and shared goals. Something different. Something that made me want to be near you, to know you better. We have a word for that feeling, Ta said softly. I know, Jiya replied. I've studied your languages, but I don't think it's exactly the same for me as it is for you. How could it be? We're from different worlds. Different, but both valid, Ta said. Like our ways of reproducing, our ways of thinking, our ways of feeling. Yes, Jia agreed. Different paths that somehow led us to the same place, standing here together. Ta smiled. And that's the real discovery, isn't it? Not what's between a human's legs or a Vistaran's head bumps, but what happens when two different species decide to understand each other. Jia's head bumps glowed with a warm purple light. That is a discovery worth making. As they looked out at the alien landscape together, Tay thought about the strange journey that had brought him here, how a simple diplomatic mission had turned into a deep exploration of what it meant to be human, what it meant to be alien, and what it meant to build connections across the stars. And it had all started with Jia's shocked reaction to human anatomy. Sometimes, Ta thought, the path to understanding began in the most unexpected places.